Who are you? Who are you? Who are you is one of life's most important questions. And I want to speak to you today to say that who God says you are is the most important conclusion you can come to, not what others say or think. So who are you? You know, football fans shout to the opposition, don't they? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? As a kind of a declaration of derision. Or maybe somebody would come into your personal world and would say, who are you? Who are you? As if that's a sense of disapproval. What do you think you are doing in this space? Who do you think you are? Maybe somebody would have said, who are you and what have you done with Jonny or your name? You know, that's become a popular phrase, hasn't it? Who are you and what have you done with? As if it's some declaration of astonishment that you are acting out of character to who people thought you are. There was a moment when I was a teenager when we just moved areas and I'd started playing football with a group of lads in a junior team, and then I'd come to a place where lots of lads were all hanging out together, and somebody said, who are you? As if I was completely new to the scene, new to the group, and another lad said, oh, that's Jonny, he's all right, he is. And sometimes you do need somebody to stand up for you, to vouch for you, to almost make you feel you're okay being who you are. So who are you? Pontius Pilate is the Roman governor, and he's in charge. He's the one in authority of the whole of the province when Jesus has been led before him on trial and on charges of treason and blasphemy. And Pontius Pilate, this Roman governor, who is now overseeing the judgment and the trial and the execution of Jesus, starts to interrogate Jesus with questions about who he is. Who are you? Pilate would ask him. He would ask him, are you a criminal? Because this is what people are saying about you. They're saying you've broken the law to such a point you deserve to die for it. Are you a criminal? He also asked Jesus, are you a king? Because that's what people are saying you are declaring about yourself. Now, through this whole process, Jesus remains silent because who God says we are is far more important than what other people will say or think. I think it is true, isn't it, in this world, that what is near to you is dear to you. So think about the people or the things that are most important to you, and think about what you're standing near or having close proximity. What is near to you is dear to you. When we're looking for answers in this world about the human state of things, we're looking into the crises of identity, we're looking into the emptiness that people feel, the turmoils, the anxiety, the struggles, the challenges, the conflicts that are between nations and different kinds of people groups, the destruction of the natural environment, and even this sense of where could the future be, because we're seeing these great resource challenges of fuel and climate, and where the world's going to end up in many years' time. Even our whole culture and society so built on consumerism, built on upgrades, built on having the latest things, it tells us, and I think it speaks to us, that if we have particular material goods and possessions, then that will determine our status and our identity. But that keeps moving on, doesn't it? It keeps changing, because every 2 or 3 years' time in that cycle, you're going to need something else to replace what you already had to determine who you are. Who are you? I think, like with Pontius Pilate, the way that we all see Jesus is the way that we can see life, the world, and eventually who we are ourselves. So your what you're looking for is really a who. Who are you? But who is Jesus? Recently, I heard one of the news correspondents, or maybe like me, you're starting to think of them as news despondents. There seems to be a lot of despondency, doesn't there, with the mass media and the news outlets that are telling us about what is going on throughout the world and the globe. And this news correspondent declared this as a great statement: the whole world is now on standby. The whole world is now on standby. And I think that was because of the tensions of war and the tensions of how that could escalate. But think about standing by and things that are on standby. If you've ever been on an airplane, you would know that the pilot at some point always says to the cabin crew, stand by for takeoff or stand by for landing. It's probably more important to land a plane than it is take off a plane. But they say to the cabin crew, get ready, be prepared. Are you ready? Are you on standby? Because standing by means you're ready for what's coming next. Think about all of our devices, phones and TVs and laptops. We often put them on standby so that they're ready to use, so that we can access them at a moment's notice. I remember an old film called Stand By Me, and I think it was named because of a famous song also called Stand By Me, you know, kind of doom, doom, doom. I think I'm getting that initial kind of sense of those rhythms and the tunes. But whether it's an old song or an old movie, to have somebody who would stand by you, I think we all love that level of support. It's this public declaration, isn't it? A declaration of loyalty, that no matter what difficult situation you are facing, you have somebody who will stand by you. Standing is positional. Standing by means that you're holding some ground and you're speaking up on behalf of somebody else. Well, I noticed that the cross of Jesus is a reminder of not only what we're all looking for, but what we are looking for is really found in who Jesus is. And there are a number of groups that are standing by or passing by the cross. So Pilate, he's done this investigation on who Jesus is. He's asked the questions about whether Jesus is a criminal or whether Jesus is a king. And because he gives way to the pressure of the crowd, he washes his hands of his responsibility and he hands Jesus over to be executed. Jesus is led away by the soldiers. He's forced to carry his own cross that he's going to be crucified on. He goes to this place that they call the place of the skull. And you may have heard of that place as called a hill called Calvary. Or in the Hebrew, it would have been called and named Golgotha. And it was because it was this little mound outside of the city walls of Jerusalem, where if you looked at it from a distance, it looked like a skull. But not only that, it was a place of death. It was a place that overlooked the valleys where people were crucified because of the most heinous crimes. And so here's Jesus. He's led away to this point where the Roman soldiers are going to execute him on this a place called Golgotha, the place of the skull. And it's at this point that Jesus Christ is nailed to the cross. Now, here's the first couple of groups that are near or passing by the cross. Firstly, you get this group of chief priests, teachers of the law, the religious rulers of the day. They've falsely accused Jesus. They've produced false witnesses to try and get Jesus out of the way. They want Jesus to die because Jesus has been challenging their hypocrisy, their authority. He's undermining their power in who they believe they are. Who are you? And so these chief priests, they really sneer at Jesus, and they've used all these false accusations to get Jesus tried. Now Pilate, the Roman governor, knows full well that it's because of jealousy and envy that these chief priests have handed Jesus over to him, and only he can declare the final judgment over somebody's life to be executed. But he goes along with it despite knowing that this would be an injustice of somebody innocent. And the chief priests, when they see Jesus nailed to the cross, say this: he saved others, but he can't save himself. He saved others, but he can't save himself. They sneer at who Jesus is. Now, what they completely miss in this whole episode of Jesus on the cross is that if Jesus did save himself, he would have defeated the purpose of why he would be the sacrifice on behalf of the whole world to pay for everything that was wrong, the burden of sin that was put on Jesus upon that cross. He would have defeated that if he'd have saved himself. He didn't save himself because he was saving others. But they sneer. And they sneer because there's hardness of heart. And every time you're cynical, your heart hardens. Now here's the second group. The second group are passers-by. And have you noticed in life today, there are a lot of people who are passing by your life who may make comments, who may have an opinion or form an opinion, who may bring something critical or having a strong opinion, and they don't really know who you are. And these passers-by, they're often given to mockery. It's out there, isn't it? So much. This sense of mockers, and I'm not talking about a nice chocolate coffee from your local coffee shop. I'm talking about mockery. Mockers. At the end of mockery is like this smugness, to appear like they're knowledgeable, to appear like they're always right. So these passers-by look at Jesus with derision and they mock who he is. They're going, if you're so loved by God, why isn't God coming to rescue you? Jesus, why are you ending up in this position? Again, they've missed the purpose of the cross, but they mock and they get into this place of debunking and tearing down, acting very smug in the process, because often mockers find themselves in the large majority so that they are safe themselves. The opening psalm in the Bible, Psalm number 1, the songbook of the Bible, has this opening line to it that says, do not sit in the company of mockers. If you find yourself in that place of smugness, you will miss so much of what God is doing. And so here, this group of mockers, they shout out to Jesus, go on then, you're the one who said, if you destroyed the temple, you will rebuild it in 3 days. Have you found in life that the mockers always twist the words of what you've said? And this is exactly what they're doing when they're mocking Jesus at the cross, because Jesus never said he would be the one who would destroy the temple. He actually said, if you destroy the temple, I will rebuild it in 3 days. What Jesus is really referring to, that everybody's missing is the temple was seen as the place to come and worship God. And Jesus himself is saying, I am now the core, the place to come to, the one to come to worship God. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am God who is showing you the way. Come to me, worship me, lift up my name. And if you destroy this body, this place of worship, I will rebuild it in 3 days. A prophecy of his own resurrection. Smugness or hardness changes how we see who Jesus is. And then there are 2 other groups, and I want to go just to John's gospel here and just read so you can see the contrast, because here's the decision we all have to make about those who are especially near to the cross and standing by the cross. In John 19, in John's gospel, verses 23 and 24, it talks about the first of those groups. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they divided his clothes among them, among the 4 of them. And I think that's really important, the 4 of them. They also took his robe, but it was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. So they said, rather than tearing it apart, let's throw dice for it. And this fulfilled the scriptures, Psalm 22, that says, they divided my garments among themselves and threw dice for my clothing. And so that is what they did. You know, the soldiers are there to perform the execution. They're there to make sure nothing gets out of hand. Nobody tries to intervene and save Jesus and take his body down. They are there as expert executioners to get the job done. But their responsibility was to uphold what had been judged over Jesus. You see, the death of Jesus was judicial. He was put up on charges of blasphemy and treason. Blasphemy is a sense of declaring you are God. It's taking a sense of God's name in vain. It's saying that we don't believe that God, you are somebody to be honoured or worshipped, and we see ourselves more important than that. That's a sense of blasphemy. A sense of treason is rebellion, isn't it, to something of rightful rule and authority. And these are the 2 charges that Jesus is executed for: blasphemy and treason. I note, though, that when we would all have to give us an account of our lives before God ourselves, those are completely the 2 charges that we really should be standing before God one day. A sense of saying to God, we know best. And we don't think you're the one who should tell us how to run our lives. We know better than you. We want to be as God in our lives. A sense of blasphemy, but also a sense of rebellion. Because here's the treason: we've all gone off our own way and committed wrongdoings and trespassed against God because we've decided to step out of bounds and to think and act and do and speak whatever we would have chosen to do, even that if that would have been against what God wanted for us. But Jesus has paid the price for those 2 charges. He has made that sacrifice and ransomed all of us, that if we choose him as our saviour, that we would go free because he's paid the price for those 2 charges. But that's what the soldiers are there to enforce. And they divide Jesus' clothing between the 4 of them because that was their right to do so. It was like their bonus, their extra payment, that they would get the items that the accused and the judged would still have in ownership, and they were now theirs. But when they come to Jesus, his undergarment is a linen all-in-one woven piece of cloth. And I think that speaks 2 things which are so important. First and foremost, this one piece of covering over the body of Christ is one complete piece. And it's why they didn't just rip it up into 4 pieces and have a little piece each, because the value of it was all in one. So they rolled dice for it to see who would get it. I think there's a symbol here of the covering over the body of Christ, the church of Jesus, that needs to be in unity, that needs to be united, that needs to be all in one as we represent him. But the other symbol of it is it's the exact same undergarment that the high priests would have worn in the temple, because Jesus is not only our sacrifice, Jesus is also the high priest administering what is needed before God. He brings through what will satisfy God. And this is what Jesus is doing. But the soldiers represent all those people who are fully conscious. They know what they're doing in life, but they're only interested in what they can get out of life. And effectively, and I think I was in this position before I became a Christian, that I was rolling the dice, hoping that it would turn out good and I would receive more than I thought I would. And I think many people are like those soldiers today, rolling the dice and hoping it turns out good. But in contrast, as those soldiers miss the point, maybe they're so close to Jesus, so close to the cross, but because their focus is on their self-interest, they don't really know who they are or who Jesus is. And in contrast, here's verse 25 of John 19, standing near the cross. So standing by, what is near and dear, standing near the cross, were Jesus' mother Mary, his mother's sister Salome, Mary, another Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene, a third Mary. Have you noticed that there were 4 soldiers and now 4 women? The women who had particularly followed Jesus closely through his ministry, they're here again, gathered at the cross. Now, they do not understand the magnitude of what is going on, but they need to feel close to where their hopes have been, where they've held all their love. They're still trying to work out who they are in relation to who Jesus is. I mean, imagine what Mary, the mother of Jesus, was going through, watching her son in such deep agony. If anyone is a mum out there, you will know the pain of something when you're watching it through the life of your child when they suffer or are in something of an agonizing situation. And here's Mary, and to every mother, she would know completely how you feel, and so does God in this moment. The pain of this episode of suffering is heartbreaking. It can feel defeating and distressing. But I think those 4 mourning women are balancing out the 4 soldiers dividing up Jesus' clothes. And I think John, in writing his gospel, wants to emphasize the choice that the cross can bring to you. Will you reject Jesus at the cross, or will you follow him to the end? I think what you should know about Jesus through the eyes of those 4 women is this, that God enters into the suffering of this world. And I think he enters into 3 particular ways. He enters into the physical suffering. Jesus goes through physical agony when he's crucified. But that is so important in a hurting world. In a hurting world right now, where a lot of the hurt and suffering is physical, we need to know that a God understands. There is a God who loves us, and a God who goes through and has gone through even more agony than we ourselves will suffer. But it's not just physical suffering Jesus has on the cross. It's also relational suffering, because Jesus suffers at the hands of other people. And when it comes to war, when it comes to conflict, when it comes to all the things that rage around this world in anger, the rage and the wrath that people have over other people, we suffer often at the hands of other people. But also our suffering, just like what Jesus experienced, is emotional. And Jesus would have not just had the physical agony, but it's the humiliation, the shame. You know, we can put up with a lot, but most of us don't want to be humiliated in front of other people. Jesus would have been crucified on that cross to deep humiliation. And in their mourning, those 4 women just didn't quite understand that at that moment, in the moment of Jesus' greatest agony, in this greatest place of distress, it was the greatest moment of redemption, because Jesus is now suffering on our behalf. Who are you? You are the one that Jesus gave his life for. Who are you? Jesus gave himself for you. You are the one that Jesus would be prepared to suffer so deeply. When it comes to Jesus' birth at Christmas time, we think of the God who is now with us. He's come in human form. But here on the cross, Jesus is real, and Jesus is the representative of the one who would suffer for us. So in the closing scenes of Jesus' life, where are you standing? Who are you? Are you going to think over this period of time about who you are? Do you have hope in the future? What are you overcome with? And I know that for those 4 mourning women, they walked away from the cross still not understanding the purpose and the plan of salvation. But it would become true and real and revealed to them in due course. But Jesus is no longer on trial. We are. This is not a sad story. This is not a defeat. This is not a failure. The greatest pain is the greatest moment. And life will test your faith. It will test you through your own struggles or the struggles that you see in the world. It will test your hope, what you are holding near and dear to you, the things in the world that you would trust into. Life will test your love, the love of yourself, the love of others, the love of God. But there is no sufficient answer to all of life's questions, to whether we can be satisfied by this, that, or something else. There is only the cross. The cross just shows us the way. And Jesus said, "When I am lifted up from this earth, I will draw all people to myself." It is the cross that does that. The death of Jesus is the only entrance into life. It's the only way that you will discover who you are. Zechariah's prophecy of the crucifixion, Zechariah 12:10, they will look on the one whom they have pierced. So where are you standing? Are you standing nearby? Are you near the foot of the cross? Because at the foot of the cross, we are all the same before God, in need of salvation and his grace to save us. Because the cross is a reminder not just of what we are looking for, because your what is a who. So who is Jesus and who are you?
Thanks for joining us for the message here at Renewal. We hope you've been inspired, encouraged and challenged by what you've heard, and that it will be of great purpose for you and others. This year we are celebrating Renewal's 50th Jubilee year, which is really exciting for us. To find out how you can get involved, why don't you go to renewalcc.com/50. Yes, that's the big 50. If you'd like to know more about what it means to be a Christian, then why not sign up for our Next Steps program? Go to renewalcc.com/next steps, fill out the contact form, and one of our friendly team will be in touch. No worry, we won't spam you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our online channels at YouTube. And also you can stay up to date by going to our Renewal podcast at renewalcc.com/media or searching on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Every Monday we'll release a new episode so you can stay right up to date. Finally, if you like the work we do here, you can donate to Renewal by going to renewalcc.com/give. All donations are gratefully received. Have a blessed week ahead, and we will see you soon.